All right, so I got something fun and dumb for you. This is dumb. All right, and I can't believe that I'm going to say it to you, but okay.
Yeah.
The other day, my wife just saw something silly on Reddit. It was that if you get the hiccups, it's a holdover from, like when we first emerged from the seas, right? It's like when you had gills back in the way back, right? So this is the whole premise is that you can tell yourself, I'm not a fish, I don't need to do this, and your hiccups go away. So far, I'm 2 for 2. This is the dumbest thing.
Welcome to GCP Bytes, episode number 3 for Friday, the 11th of October, 2024. GCP Bytes is a podcast where we discuss Google Cloud and tech. And I'm your host, Stephen Bancroft. On today's show, we discuss the 3G shutdown debacle that's about to happen. Have you been scammed on the Playstore? Google shifts to Rust. We give you another list. Haven't done one of those for a while. Plus, is everyone in on the AI Pact? We find out in the AI Wars. But before we get to any of that, I'd like to introduce the co-host of the show, David Wall. How you going, Dave?
I'm doing great, mate. Maybe I'll have to get in on this AI Pact.
Well, if you've got a model, maybe. And our very own GDE, Ian Brown. How are you, Ian?
I'm good, mate. How you doing?
Good. What have you guys been up to in the fortnight?
So for you guys all know I've got a Land Cruiser, and Land Cruisers, well, back when mine was made, don't use OBD2, like was the standard in the country.
Before 2005, I think they
so the 200 series uses OBD2, but the 100 series never did. It's a OBD2 connector, but it's pinned differently because fun. So I had to go out and buy this extremely expensive cable in order to connect up to this particular connector. And then I've been playing around setting up Toyota's TechStream, which is their custom diagnosis software that talks to the computer in the car and gives you all the diagnostics and allows you to program things. So that's my big tech adventure. It is a massive pain in the backside.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. Getting TechStream to talk to this particular off-brand thing that is not a TechStream TIS device is horrendous. So, that was fun.
Yeah, I've got nothing, man. The last 2 weeks have just been flat stick for me. So I've had no tech adventures, nothing that hasn't been work really.
No, right. Yeah.
All work, no play makes Dave sad boy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I had a little breakthrough on the C64 story.
Ooh.
I was mucking around with the 128, which is, I've got 2 machines I'm working on there at the moment, and I hadn't got anywhere with that. I changed the cap and a diode, and that didn't help, and I've ended up ordering a character ROM because that's kind of where I'm at with it, just randomly swapping parts to try and figure out what's going on.
Did your diagnostic cartridge thing turn up? Or
it did, and it won't even power. Like when you turn it on, it's just a black screen.
Oh.
Ooh.
Right. But so I went back to the 64 and because I did swap a part from the 128 into the 64 and I wanted to see if that part was still functional. And I turned the 64 on and I got a picture from it, right? And the diode cart was plugged in at the time. And it just so happened to show at that instant RAM chip in socket U21 was faulty. It was on the screen just enough for me to whip my phone out and take a photo of it, and then the screen went black.
Right.
So I know what the problem is with the C64. It's the first RAM chip. And incidentally, the part I swapped from the 128 obviously worked because I got a picture, so I swapped it back. So I've ordered a bunch of those SD 1K RAM chips. I'll be doing swapsies with at least one of those on that C64.
So those parts, are they like are they new old parts, or they've been recovered from old 64s?
They tend to be the ones I've ordered are old parts. Tested tested working old parts, yeah.
Old, well burnt in.
Yeah. So,
nice.
And I got like 20 of them for, $7 or something.
Oh, okay, right.
But they're like a 74LS 128 or something, aren't they? The RAM chips in them? Because they're all TDL logic, so they're 74LS chips that go in them. I just can't remember the number that's on the end of them.
So there is a gate array, which is a LS256.
Yep.
That sort of controls the memory, but the memory chips themselves are MN4164P.
Oh, okay.
And then there's a designation on the end of 15. That's the speed of them. And it's 6535 by 1 bit dynamic RAM. And so what they do is they take 8 of those and they line them all up, and that gives you 8 bits over 64Ks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, because I know that you can still buy brand new 74LS logic. I know JCart sells it.
Yeah, and I'm sure someone's made some fantastic adapter converter board that you can solder in and then plug the 74 logic in and have it all work and everything. But I'm just want to do a 1-for-1 swap.
Yep. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yep.
Well, the other big thing that I saw during the week was we built the fastest ever spacecraft. So the Parker Solar Probe it's about set to undergo its final gravitational encounter with Venus, which will be the 7th time it's done it. And the latest gravity assist will change its trajectory to bring it closer to the sun, which is, the article says, to within 8.86 solar radii. So 8.86 times the radius of the sun. Or just 6.2 million kilometres away. Which
pretty close, really.
It's in the neighbourhood.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's already set a speed record of 176 kilometres a second.
Sure.
So it's cracking along, and that was back at when it hit perihelion in 2023 and 2024. But the latest bump is going to push it to 192 kilometres a second, or for those who measure in bananas, 119 miles per second.
Right.
That's unfathomably quick.
That is screaming along.
Yeah.
But it's still like a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of the speed of light.
Oh, that's right.
We're not even close.
Yeah, it's not even remotely close, but you've got to think of what's 176 kilometres away from me, and getting there within a second.
Just boom. Yeah.
That's like, wow.
Yeah.
Or you could get to me in 9 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. But the article goes on, it gives you all the cool stats and all about the Parker Solar Probe and how it's constructed and all that sort of stuff. But one of the really, really cool things it shows is from its closest approach to the sun appears 28 times larger than what we see on Earth. Because, we see the little ball in the sky on Earth, and this thing is like, it's massive. It goes from this big.
Much closer, yeah.
Yeah.
To 28 times the size, yeah.
No, I guess it's pretty big.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of a big thing. But at least it thinks so.
Thinks it's so hot sitting over there.
Oh, the dad jokes are coming out thick and fast this morning. Love it.
And what is this mission?
So this is investigating the sun, essentially. That's what the solar probe is all about. But
right.
The idea is that it gets into this as close as it can to the sun's corona, and actually investigates what's going on inside the sun. Because we think we know what's going on inside the sun. Like, we're pretty sure we know how the nuclear fusion works that's going on in there, but no one's ever been there to test it.
But do we really know? Yeah.
No, well, that's right. I mean, it's very hard to hand on heart, I know this is what's happening because I've been there.
But you've got to go and test it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. They have all the theories in the world. And the best thing I love with science experiments like this is when they go and they do the tests and they do the investigation, and it doesn't match the theory.
That's right.
And it just breaks it. That's the greatest thing to see happen, because you get new science come out of that, right? And
that's right.
New findings. Yeah.
And scientists are fantastic at being able to change their view based on evidence, which I think is a skill.
Well, they should be able to.
They should, yeah.
They should be able to.
Every scientist that I've met is very, very good at being presented evidence that's contrary to what they think they know, and they'll go, oh, right, okay. And they'll go and research that evidence, and when they find out it's true, they're like, right, no, I was wrong.
That's right. Yeah, that's the way it should work. What did Carl Sagan say? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
That's correct.
That's yeah. So yeah, that's good, and let's see what results come out of that experiment. It'd be great. But my little thing as well during the week, I came across a story. Some dude has managed to boot Linux on the Intel 4004 CPU, which is the first commercially available CPU. It took nearly 5 days to boot it.
And that predates the 8086 by a considerable number of years.
Yeah, 1971 it came out, the 4004. And you got Linux booting on it. Yeah, and that just goes to show that Linux will run on anything.
There's what was the version? We're talking Alpine, or had to be cut down as, right?
Oh, it would have to be, yeah.
Yeah, he's probably done some.
It'd be a full fat Ubuntu with a GUI.
Yeah, no, well, because the board that they show on there has only got like the 7-segment displays, but it's only a 2-line. Looks like it might have like 32 characters on each line.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really cool.
That's a passion project to get that working.
Yeah, it is.
There's probably moments where he's pulling his hair out. Going, why am I doing this?
Well, my question then becomes, when's he getting Doom running on it?
It's the next step, right? Now you've got an OS. Now you can.
Yeah, now you can run Doom.
Well,
very cool.
I saw that they had Doom running on an E. coli virus.
What?
What? I don't know more to the story than that, but that's what I saw.
Oh no, I'm going to Google this now.
I'll try and dig it up.
I'm going to Google this.
Yeah, I think it was E. coli.
Doom on E. coli.
Oh, back.
Very, very slowly. It would take nearly 600 years to finish playing this MIT student's iteration of the classic video game.
There you go.
That is hilarious.
Video of Doom running on a gut bacteria.
That's hilarious. So rank.
I'll link that in the show notes. Yeah. That was an unexpected one.
Yeah, it's so clever.
Very clever.
My kids have been very impressed with that. I had to kind of explain that meme to them of just like, oh, well, if something has a screen on it, people try and get Doom to go on it. Like it's running on microwaves and fridges and watches and viruses. And
yeah. Last time I checked, though, a virus didn't have a screen. Oh. But, they can be adapted. They can be an Android virus.
Yeah, looking at it through a microscope, you can do that.
Oh, that's gold. I love it.
So
all right. With that out of the way, let's get on. Sorry?
No, I did just want to touch on one thing because we kind of mentioned it last week after Ian's Starlink adventures, and we talked about like how Starlink is starting to be able to be used for like emergency services, and in the fallout of the hurricane in North Carolina, they have enabled emergency coverage. In that area, direct cell phone to Starlink satellites for emergency broadcasts. And so I know this is something that SpaceX had been working on with, I think, T-Mobile in the US. Yeah, to actually add that hardware onto their satellites with a view to, one day being able to activate that service. Yep. But obviously this has given it the push to be able to switch it on, at least temporarily in that space.
Yep.
It's a good trial run, at least.
Oh, for sure.
At the very least, it'd be an excellent trial run because, there's no other service there.
No, exactly. And you're not competing with the other telcos. You're not trotting all over their frequencies or anything like that because they're down.
Yeah.
So,
there's no infrastructure there anymore.
So, that's just a nice thing to see, that technology be able to actually, be used and so rapidly.
Yeah, we'll get on to emergency services and why that's important later as well. Interesting segue there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get on with the rest of the... If there's nothing else, no more stories, no more war stores, no more booting Linux or running Doom on anything.
Go once, go twice.
On with the podcast. Let's get on with the community news. All right, Ian, you've thrown a couple of things in the community news. Here's take us through it.
I have indeed. So 11th of October, so the day that this podcast will be released, GDG Sydney is running a study jam at the Google office in Piermont. Myself and JK are running or facilitating the workshops that we're running there. We're running 2 with the possibility of a 3rd, maybe, depending on what people want. So that'll be a really good one. You've got to register for that, so we'll obviously have the link in the show notes. And GDG Auckland is holding DevFest on the 10th of November for all our Kiwi listeners. I'll be over there speaking, as will a whole heap of other GDEs from Australia and New Zealand that are all good friends. So come along and sit down and listen to my talk about Slackbots with Gemini, because that's cool.
It is cool. I had registered for that study jam, but unfortunately, since it got moved, I've got band rehearsal on Friday night, so I've got to go to that.
Surely the boys band rehearsal once.
Can't. No, we've got a gig next week, so we've got to be hot. I can't let the boys down.
No,
All right.
no.
Thanks for that, Ian. They sound like great events. I'll link them in the show notes. All right, let's get on with the news items. Our first news item this week is a pretty important one, and it's kind of been flying under the radar a little bit, and there has not been much discussion or news coverage on it, not that I've seen anyway. But I came across a video on YouTube put together by a fella by the name of Hugh Jeffries. So big shout out to him. I'll link his video in the show notes, but I'm going to break it down for you here. And what he's talking about is the impending 3G network shutdown. Now, a bit of background here in case you don't know. When we first had mobile phones, they were on the analog network. That's effectively first generation, 1G, and then we came onto the digital network, which was, they called it 2G, second generation. And then the big song and dance came along, and we have got 3G now, third gen, and that's kind of when things started taking off with mobile phones, and you got your apps and digital connectivity and internet and everything on your phones. And since then, we've just iterated to 4G, and now we've got 5G. Well, the 2G network was shut down. 1G, the old AMPS, analog mobile phone, and the 2G network, they were shut down years ago. But the 3G network shutdown has been timetabled. It's already been delayed once. It was going to be shut down on July 24th. Actually, twice. I'm not sure what the previous date was. And the next shutdown is planned for October 28th, so just around the corner. Now, you might be thinking, I've got a 5G phone, I've got the latest whatever. Why is the shutdown of the 3G network? It shouldn't affect me. And that's pretty much what everyone in the government was thinking. Well, a couple of concerns have been raised, and primarily around emergency service calling. Now, the problem that exists is that 3G for voice calls is a standard. It's a standard for basically making an analog call over that digital network. There's a standard for it. When you get up to 4G and 5G, they move to a thing called voice over LTE. Now, voice over LTE is not standardized, and you need to have custom modem in your phone in order to have voice over LTE support on that 4G or 5G network. 4G and 5G specifically are really only data standards, and you're effectively doing voice over IP when you're on 4G or 5G. Whereas 3G has a voice calls, 2G and 3G have a standard, and it's called circuit switch calling. Right, now that exists. So what a lot of phones have done in order to get around this is when you make a voice call, they just fall back to 3G. Ooh. Right? Because it doesn't, if the phone that you have doesn't support voice over LTE on your 4G or 5G network, they just fail back to 3G. And a lot of phones do this.
Right.
So if you've got a phone that you bought from overseas, or it's like an off-network phone, or an claimed unlocked phone, usually they are 4G, 5G compatible, but they're falling back to make 3G calls. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, sure, yeah, I'll be fine. I can just make calls on Discord and Facebook Messenger, whatever. Right, that'll be fine. But what about if you're making emergency calls? Well, if you're making emergency calls, it's going to fall back. It's going to want to fall back to 3G. Suddenly, there's no 3G network there. You can't make emergency calls, right? Roaming phones also have this problem as well, right? If they've come from overseas and they're roaming, they won't have the LTE software. They can't make voice over LTE calls. They're going to fall back to 3G, which is, got circuit switch calling.
Does this also affect things like fire instrumentation panels and security systems?
Absolutely. So any like IoT stuff, farm equipment, remote machinery, lift phones, I mentioned roaming phones, some versions of iPhone that don't support band 28 because they've got a different modem chip in them, right? Even though it looks the same, the iPhone model looks the same, right? There's a Qualcomm and an Intel modem chip. The Intel modem chip doesn't support band 28.
Right.
They can't fall back to 3G either. They can't fall back and they won't work. Right. They do fall back to 3G because the voice over LTE is not compatible.
That's a costly problem. Not just a pain in the backside, it's costly.
Yeah. So think of the e-waste that's going to be generated. Right. And people have got to get new phones. Suddenly you've got vendor lock-in. The other problem is with custom ROMs and the whole homebrew environment, right? So if they've got to have proprietary modem software on there, that's the end of your custom ROMs, right? So what the government has done is go, well, okay, we'll put a new law in place to say if the network provider can't confirm that phone will support voice over LTE, then the network provider will be able to block that phone from their network. Just completely block it.
That
right
seems like a crazy solution.
Right, so like a lot of grey import devices are just going to get chopped.
Yeah,
and they're going in the bin.
That's all the things that you buy off like Kogan and stuff like that. They're all come out of Asia somewhere. Yeah.
So we'll end up with the situation. We're going into this. I'd like to know what Lou Rossman's got to say about this because we're going into this, vendor lock-in, right to repair kind of ground where, if you want to tell a phone, right, and you want to be on the Telstra network, you got to buy the phone off Telstra. That's it. There's no option.
Because I remember when I first got my Pixel. So when I first bought my Pixel, I plugged my Telstra SIM card into it, fired it up. And one of the first things that happened was I got this message to say that there's a bit of Telstra custom firmware that needs to be installed. And that got in. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just like, oh, okay, Telstra's putting something on my phone for whatever reason. I don't really care. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's their firmware to make the modems work on their network.
That's right. Yeah, some phones will do it, right? But some phones won't because, like I mentioned, they've got different chipsets in them.
Yep. Yeah, wow. That's a conundrum and a half.
It is a conundrum and a half.
I mean, the thing that kind of throws me a bit, though, is I would have expected that the carriers would have stats on how many things are hitting their 3G networks, right? I would expect that they would have those metrics from the cell towers.
You would think that.
I would think that, yes.
I certainly hope so.
Go. All I can say is go and watch the video. There's an expert that's brought in on the video, and he's raised these concerns with the government, and he specifically asked Telstra, well, how many roaming devices do you have on your network? Because they're going to be affected. They're not going to be able to make emergency calls. And Telstra can't answer that. Telstra didn't know.
Right.
So if that's one thing they don't know, then what else don't they know? Right?
I mean, you mentioned, I think it was Ian a moment ago, about like dial home, like fire services panels and stuff. And definitely that's where it comes to me of like, okay, well, how much, like, all right, someone's phone stops working. Oh, okay, well, that's a singular person who's impacted. You can go and get a new phone. That's doable.
Yeah.
But you're going to have, like lift phones and things that all of a sudden just don't work, and people don't use them all the time. So,
so you've got to think of the risk, the risk and cost of it. So the fire panels, the modems in them, I don't know how much they cost. I know that all the stuff that anything that has to do with fire is expensive. It's the same as anything that has to do with disability is expensive. So let's say that a fire panel modem might cost $1,000, just as throwing a number out there. That doesn't sound like a huge amount of money. You go, it's only $1,000. But you think of building operators that might have like 10, 20, 30 buildings, and all of a sudden they're shelling out $30,000.
And there's like 8 lifts in each building.
That's right.
Plus remote locations as well. And you go, okay, well, now I've got to send, a technician on a 8-hour round trip to fix one $1,000 device.
That's right.
Upgrade it to a 4G or 5G.
And the risk to human life there, because it might not have been done by the time the 3G shutdown happens, and then all of a sudden you've got a fire in there. The fire panel can't dial the fire service because there's no network there for it anymore, and all of a sudden you've got 1,000 people in a building burning to death.
Yep. It's going to take one incident, and then they're going to realise, why did we do this?
Yep.
Now, there's other crazy stuff going on too. Like the government's saying, well, they've done it. They've shut it down in other countries. They shut 3G down in the UK. It hasn't been a problem. Well, the UK's still got 2G.
Yeah,
things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm sympathetic on the requirement to move forward, right? To be like, hey, yep, we've got these old, less used bands. We'd like to free up those frequency bands to be able to use for new services going forward. However, you do have to actually manage that transition, and at some point, you will need to do it.
You've got to rip that Band-Aid off,
yeah,
right?
like at some point, it's just, is it now? I don't know.
I think and I haven't seen a huge amount about this at all, which is uncommon because I am actually a registered cabler as well. So I should have seen via ACMA. I'm subscribed to all their newsletters. I should have seen via the Master Cablers Association newsletters from them about it as well, but I haven't. We should have seen here's a known phone list that will be affected in the shutdown. If you've got this or your customers have it, get rid of them.
So Vodafone have that. So they did a 3G shutdown, and obviously on a much smaller scale because of a much smaller network, and everything that we're predicting here absolutely happened.
Right.
And they've got a list of phones that no longer work on their network. Right, and you can bet it's going to be the same list that's going to ultimately not work on the Telstra network as well.
And the thing is, the Telstra one is going to be out in a lot more like rural places, because in a lot of those places, they're the only option.
Yeah,
absolutely, and that's my concern, right? Ian, you as a traveller of the world should be your concern as well, right? Like when you get out in those regional areas, 3G is the only thing, right? You can throw your 4G and 5G in the bin, right?
Well, and that's the thing, because the 3G. So as you're stepping up the number of Gs in this standard that It's not really a standard. In the generations that come out, the distance from the tower shortened because you're obviously trying to push more bandwidth over it. The wavelengths
More
are shorter,
bits.
et cetera, et cetera. So they're higher bandwidth, but shorter
Smaller
distance.
cells. Yeah.
So you've got to have more towers. So you think about, Banky, we were in Winton last year, and outside of Winton, you get 10 Ks outside of Winton, you've got nothing. Not a skerrick of signal. Because there's like a single tower in
There's
Winton.
the tower.
There's a tower. Yeah. You're in Winton and you might get 2 or 3 bars of signal and that's fine. But it literally is you've got a little tiny bit of 4G. It's enough to load a web page eventually.
Yeah.
It's not 4G like you get in a rural area like I am at the moment. We get 4G here and it's lightning quick. I can pull 200 megasecond out of it. But out there, you get 4G and you'll be lucky if you're doing 10 megasecond.
Yep. I might get it if I'm in my truck up on a hill with the 6 dB antenna on it.
Yep.
I might get a little bit of throughput.
Yep.
But that's what it takes, right?
That's it. So you think of like little towns like that have a massive influx of tourists once or twice a year. Their services basically go to nothing when all those tourists come in. And then for the rest of the time when the tourists aren't there, then the locals are fine. But if we take 3G away, now instead of being 5 kilometres from the cell tower and getting signal, now you're 2 kilometres from the cell tower and barely getting signal.
And you're relying on voice over LTE, which is getting smashed when all those tourists are there.
Yep.
You'd be lucky to be able to make a call at all.
Yeah. Yeah, so I see it as a really big problem for rural towns.
Absolutely, yeah. So what can we do about this? Well, there is a petition you can sign. I went off and signed that petition, and once again, my driver behind that was around the rural connectivity as well. But you may have your own, reasons for signing that. And the e-waste. I'm just not a fan of the e-waste as well. This is going to be huge. So I'll link that in the show notes. Go and sign that if you got feels about this. Now the other thing you can do too, there is an app made by Hugh Jeffries. That's the creator of that video. I'll link in the show notes. It's called iTest, and it's like $1.70 or something. Go and get the app, and you can. It runs various tests on your phone, and one of those tests is for voice over LTE to see exactly how your phone makes phone calls. So you need to turn off. I discovered you need to turn off the Wi-Fi or the Wi-Fi calling. Start the app up, and then make a call just to your voicemail or something like that. 101 if you're on Telstra, and it will check how the phone is making that call. It'll check if it's doing a voice over LTE or if it's failing back to 3G. And then once you hang up the call, it'll tell you what's happened. I get the little green tick. Of course, I've got a Pixel 8 Pro here. It does work properly with voice over LTE and doesn't fall back to 3G. So you should check that before October 28 because you might wake up on October 29 and find you can't make calls or emergency calls.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good shout. This is
All right.
It does remind me a little bit. And we did touch back a moment ago about the Vodafone, the 2G and shutdown, like years and years ago. And I'm thinking that something that will also come out of this is not just services dropping off, but is going to be rogue AP or rogue broadcasting complaints. Because the company that I was working for many, many moons back, we had been a Vodafone customer for all our mobile phones, but it was a big factory and the coverage wasn't great. So they had come and put, like their repeater stations on-prem. And then, that contract ended. We moved away from Vodafone, didn't really have a relationship with them. When they shut the 2G network down and wanted to reclaim that spectrum, we got pinged. They put in an ACMA complaint that our site was treading on their frequencies because their own repeater that they'd installed at our site was still on, like it was still just plugged in and still sitting there. We had to track it down. I'm like, I think I remember where that thing was, and had to go find. I'm like, I found where it was plugged in and switched it off, and it went away. But there'll be heaps of those out there.
Yeah, I know. I've installed a few Telstra repeaters because, it's in some areas just as close to the coast as Blackbutt, for instance, which is not that far away from the coast. The signal there, if you're not in the town itself, is disastrous.
Yeah, but even just within buildings, like hospitals, big, solid buildings, right? The signals do not penetrate well.
No. Oh, it's going to be an interesting few weeks.
It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks if it doesn't get delayed again. But it really needs to be more press about this. I mean, TV ads or something maybe. I don't know. I've not seen anything in YouTube ads or anything like that. But I think there's a bit of an impending disaster waiting to happen. To be honest with you.
Yep.
All right, let's get off that depressing news and let's move on here. Just a quick one. Google to invest $1 billion in Thailand data center. This is pretty cool. Building another data center. Seems to be news every week about Google building data centers. This one is in Thailand. And they're saying the investment would create, on average, 14,000 jobs annually until 2029. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Some new jobs for people there. And interestingly enough, in this article, it said the Thai Prime Minister, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name, said Google's investment was perfectly aligned with the cloud, with the country's cloud first policy. Interesting that they have that policy.
Yeah.
Cloud first.
Yeah, definitely. I found it a little bit interesting with the article. It said its data center will be located in an industrial estate in Chonburi. I'm assuming that's how you say that town.
Mm-hmm.
While the Google Cloud region, which consists of the hardware and software, dedicated providing services to public and private sector entities, will be in the capital, Bangkok. So, hang on. You're splitting the cloud in half?
Well, it does say data center infrastructure in Bangkok and Chonburi. Maybe they're having two regions.
Two zones in the region?
Or two zones?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, so maybe Google's
Chonburi is
building,
a suburb. Yeah.
So maybe the data center they're building is in Chonburi and they're just buying out
Bangkok
space in another
is a huge city, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably it's easier to say it's the Bangkok region.
Yeah, right.
And you've got the outskirts of it, the suburbs, the very outer suburbs of that enormous city, can be where the DC is.
Yeah, no, because Chonburi is quite a way away from Bangkok.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I just had to Google it because I don't know. I've never been there. But it sounds to me like they're building a data center in Chonburi and they're buying space in another data center in Bangkok. And that'll be their two zones in the region.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Or are they far enough apart to be two regions?
Oh, well and truly.
Yeah. It could be.
Looks like they're about 125k away by road.
Right.
Which will still keep it that sort of sub-millisecond type latency between the data centers.
Between the two, yep.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, more billions are better on that one.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on then. Dave, ARM wants to take a bite out of Intel.
Oh, man. And this is this little short Sharpie, but, we touched on last week, I think it was about Qualcomm sniffing around and very interested in picking up parts of Intel, vultures. I mean, speaking of the vulture, right, this first came to me from a Register, the Register article. But it sounds like that ARM or ARM, the IP, chip designer but not manufacturer, is interested in picking up chunks of Intel, but Intel have rebuffed them. So it kind of remains to be seen what they would actually want with it, because ARM has been trying its hardest for 30 years to displace x86 and x64.
Yeah. And I look at this article and I was like, so, because ARM is, as you said, purely a design company. They design the chips and they license that out to various manufacturers, Qualcomm and Apple and Ampere and a whole heap of others. Google's got their own one now as well, as AWS does. And how would this even work? Are they buying like the manufacturing, or are they just buying are they attempting to buy? They're not actually buying, but are they attempting to buy like the manufacturing piece, or are they attempting to buy the design bit?
Well, apparently they weren't interested in the foundry business at all.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, you still don't want to actually get into manufacturing. So what do you want with it? Because like the only thing you could see would be if they want to get the x86 license.
Yeah.
But that would then need AMD to
because
approve it.
Intel and AMD are in bed with that. They license that together, and any sale of either party
has to be approved by the other party.
Negate the contract,
null and voids it.
Yeah, null and void the contract, or require the other party's blessing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, perhaps it was more of a SoftBank play. They're like ARM's like largest sort of investor, and they kind of try and pick up everything. So maybe it was them trying to use ARM as a vessel. But I mean, the striking thing for me was, again, like Qualcomm, ARM is also worth more than Intel now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Intel have had a shocker. It does say in here in the article they laid off 16,000 workers following a disastrous second quarter marred by $1.6 billion in revenue losses.
Yeah, and most of that revenue loss is from their foundry.
Yeah. So, we're well past the days where Intel had this massive manufacturing advantage. Like they always had the best process. And then it was like 10 nanometer. I think they just got stuck on for like a decade.
Yep.
They missed the calling on a whole heap of different advancements too. Like they had the opportunity to really make the competitor to ARM, but for mobile phones, but they're like, mobile phones will never take off. We're not going to bother.
If it's not x86, people aren't interested. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like desktops will never go away. Yeah, that sort of thinking that'll get you broke.
Yep. They missed the whole high density CPU thing, and NVIDIA swooped in there and took that. Yep.
I remember how many years we were stuck with just 4-core CPUs, only 8 cores with hyper-threading, like just for decades. Well, not decades, but for many, many, many years. Like they would not push that envelope. It did feel like decades.
That was the Internet Explorer of hardware.
Yeah. And then,
just keep putting more power into it. It'll be fine.
Then as soon as AMD became competitive again, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I guess we could probably start bumping up core counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, sad times again for Intel.
Sad times, yep. All right, then, moving on. And we'll move on to the Ian Brown segment of the show.
So buckle in, everyone. This is the best part of the show. It's all Ian.
The best part of the show. It's all Ian from here. Take it away. And we're going to kick off with Netapp in GCP.
Yeah. So Google Cloud and Netapp have joined in a partnership with a strong focus on customer enablement and innovation around AI and Gen AI. So they've unveiled a new integration where Netapp's data storage and services have been injected into Google's distributed cloud. So we don't hear many articles on distributed cloud because it's a bit of a sort of dark horse over in the corner. And for those who are sort of sitting there going, distributed cloud, isn't that a CDN? No. Distributed cloud is the version of Google Cloud that you run in your data center on the edge or wherever it is closest to you. So you can actually pull down a bit of Google Cloud into your data center and run it.
So if you need that hyper locality, then that's how you do it.
Yeah, it's good for a whole heap of things. It's also good for test and dev. You can pull down distributed cloud into your local data center, and you can run test and dev on your infrastructure instead of paying for it on Google's. You're still going to pay a little bit, but it gives you the same tooling.
And how does that work? Does that come up as a region that you can access when you go onto the console? Or do you log onto it locally onto a local console?
No. It's all managed through Google's Cloud Console.
Yeah.
It must just come up as a region. I I've never got the privilege of deploying it. I was sort of this close to deploying it once many years ago when it first came out, and the company I was working for pulled the pin on it because, we'd require F5 load balancers and we'd require VMware at this licensing level and all the rest of it. So they pulled the pin on that, which was sad. But yeah, I'd assume it just comes up as a region.
That's the only way I could think it could work, because if you want to deploy a VM, well, you just pick that as the region and it just goes in there. Yeah.
Yep. So, so what they're really going for here, though, is that this is more like the Netapp hardware is going to be doing the shared storage for an on-prem?
Yeah, sort of. So they recently announced that Netapp's ONTAP and storage grid solutions are available on distributed cloud. Now, I assume that is the software version of it.
Yeah, ONTAP is. There is an ONTAP VM appliance that you can get, yeah.
Yep.
And I assume storage grid would be the same.
Yeah, because as far as I'm aware, storage grid is a way of managing multiple storage arrays.
Right.
Not having used it. But yeah, the article goes on to say the partnership with Netapp on Google Distributed Cloud has enabled Netapp to provide customers with a platform that organizations can benefit from localized processing, rapid scalability to meet changing demands and enhance security. So it would be an interesting one to watch out for. And Banky, you've got a VMware cluster. Let's put Distributed Cloud on it.
Let's put Distributed Cloud.
I don't know if there's a community edition for the ONTAP cloud appliance.
No, probably not. Maybe a good one to play with.
It would be. I have used the ONTAP appliance before, and it's exactly the same experience as using a Netapp, in-rack appliance.
I think the one to deploy some CIFs.
Yeah. Well, so the bit that gets me though is if you've got GCVE, for instance. You could deploy FileStore with provisioned IOPS on FileStore, and it's lightning quick. It really is fast.
So you ask yourself, why would they do it? Well, I think that they sort of touch on that in this article. It says it will help customers get a better grasp on data sovereignty, local privacy laws, and regulations. And that's the key there, right? We know, NetApp's a proven, approved, known entity. You can just say, we're using NetApp storage, and everyone says, yep, okay, ticks the box.
And it's the single pane of glass, right?
Yep.
It's that single pane of glass across all of your different ONTAP storage appliances. You can see the whole lot of them in GCP. You don't have to I've got to log into this one over here, and then, this data center, I've got to log into this one over here, like you used to with old school SANs with their control interfaces.
Remember your IP addresses and things.
Yeah. Yep. And have to RDP onto a server first because you don't ever make that iSCSI network public or routable.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, it's now available on distributed cloud, which is nice. All right, and then moving on, I mentioned this in the intro, Playstore scam.
Yeah, so back into the bad news. So Playstore had an app that was found by Checkpoint Research. It was called Wallet Connect, which is identical to the protocol Wallet Connect, which is a way to transfer cryptocurrency, essentially. And this app used the same icon, tile image, you name it, as the protocol Wallet Connect. So it was deliberately marketed as Wallet Connect when it wasn't. It was a fraudulent app. It was really easy to install. And combined with a flurry of fake reviews speaking to how effective it was at transferring coins using this Wallet Connect protocol, which is apparently quite painful, it was going to take a few users as victims, more than 10,000 of them. That's not to say that each one of the downloads led to someone being victimized. Far from it. CPR, which is the Checkpoint Research Guys, verified transactions linked to more than 150 addresses, suggesting that the number of individuals who had the wallet raided. So essentially what happened was once the app was downloaded, victims were prompted to link their wallets with their cryptocurrency in it under the assumption that it was trustworthy and it would allow smoother, secure access to supported Web3 applications. They were then instructed to authorize various transactions after selecting their wallet. Selecting the wallet triggered the app to direct the victim to a malicious website, which would then capture the details about the wallet itself, the blockchain, and the known addresses. And then exploiting the mechanics of smart contracts allowed the attackers to authorize transfers of tokens out of that wallet and into theirs.
And they were siphoned.
And yep, they were drained of everything. So 70 grand. That's not a bad haul for one app, really. Has probably done irreparable damage to the Wallet Connect protocol as well.
Yep.
I think there's, crypto's been around for let's see, it was 2008, right? So like a long time now, and these sorts of scams just haven't stopped, right? It's, and they'll sort of go quiet for a little bit whenever there's a bit of a crypto winter happening. Like things will go quiet, and as soon as the valuations start to tick back up, the scams move straight back up with it.
Scams come along with it.
Yeah.
It follows a trading cycle. It's exactly the same as the stock market. The stock market follows these lulls and people stop trading and you don't see the scams out, and then all of a sudden they pick up and you see the scams come in.
And while we're on the security scam theme, we have phishing attacks. Are they posing as Atlassian? What's going on with this one?
Yeah, so Ryan Economus is the APAC Field Chief Technology Officer at Mimecast, which is an email security firm. He's noted that there's an increase in phishing attacks directed at Australia and APAC customers, some of which are purporting to be Atlassian. Now, we all know that Atlassian sends a lot of emails. If you're using Jira or any of their software, really, it sends a lot of emails. So it's really easy to mimic that. Economist said the growing use of Atlassian workspaces was a newer development from the market. Mimecast continues to see threat actors making use of services such as OneDrive and Google Docs to host files or links in their campaigns, but the use of workspaces such as Atlassian has not been heavily abused previously. So part of the campaign was an email that appeared to be from Atlassian's Confluence product. So yeah, Confluence sends out a lot of emails. I get a dozen of them a day. Every time someone updates a page that I've written, or I've updated a page that someone else has written, I get an email about it.
Or it sends you a digest to say, look, here's what your colleagues are working on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mimecast referred to a noticeable increase in the use of Atlassian to evade detection in recent times. Abuse of legitimate services is an ongoing and evolving challenge, and attackers will continue to leverage reputable sources to launch and host their campaigns in an attempt to evade detection. So there you go. One of the biggest names in the software industry is now being mimicked in order to steal login credentials and the likes.
I'm surprised it's taken this long.
I am too.
Really?
To be honest, yeah, I am too. It was such a big one for the picking.
Yeah. All right, so just be on alert for any dodgy looking Atlassian emails, I guess, is takeaway from that one. And now we have Rust making an appearance in Android.
Yeah, so Google's been slowly switching over to Rust for a long time. I know Microsoft has been switching over to Rust for a long time as well. So they tried it sort of in earnest very early on and was like, oh, hang on, this is it's thread safe and it's got good memory utilization and we can compile it down to machine code, and they companies are liking it because of that. It's a rapid development cycle. It's giving you the speed of C++ without all of the, how do I say it? nonsense that C++ puts you through.
Nonsense. That's
Nonsense.
a good way to describe it.
It's the nicest way I can put it. But Google's revealed that its transition to memory-safe languages such as Rust, as part of its secure by design approach, has led to the percentage of memory-safe vulnerabilities discovered in Android dropping from a whopping 76%, which really surprised me, to 24%. Still not a good number, but a lot better over the last 6 years. So the article goes on, and they're talking to Google's Jeff Vanderstoep and Alex Robert, who said the problem is overwhelmingly with new code, necessitating a fundamental change in how we develop. Code matures and gets safer with time exponentially, making the return on investments like rewrites diminish as over time as code gets older. And they've got a nice little drawing here of the number of memory-safe vulnerabilities per year that has gone from over 200 down to less than 50.
Yeah, 223 in 2019 and 50 in 2024.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah, it is. So it's interesting that Android is being rewritten slowly. It looks like they're aiming for a once rewrite and move on with life.
Yeah. They do make a good point here. The concept is simple. Once we turn off the tap of new vulnerabilities, they decrease exponentially.
Yeah.
So once you start shutting them down, you're reducing the size of the door and preventing less and less vulnerabilities in, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then I guess that means they can spend less time on doing remediation and doing more time on refactoring.
Yeah, you're not playing catch up all the time.
Yeah, that's right. Your devs aren't wasting their days looking for this one memory bug that's killing them. That's taking days to diagnose and then time to figure out how to work around. Because the bugs just don't exist. It's not to say that bugs don't exist in general, but these particular ones
less.
are.
Yeah.
Or if they do exist, the way Rust works means that it's not so insecure, I guess, or not such a big deal.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, Rust is
the memory safe aspects of Rust. Means that
yeah, that's right. I did when I was in DevFest on a completely unrelated language. I was watching a talk that Brett, one of the Googlers, he's the DevRel for Flutter, gave at DevFest in Melbourne last weekend, and he was talking about the new Flutter GPU and how they've rewritten that from scratch, and it's almost released now. It's still in preview, but how difficult it is to actually write to draw a simple triangle requires like 100 lines of code in Flutter GPU because you're accessing the hardware directly. So what people are doing is using OpenGL, yes, that really old clunky thing that's been around for 20-something years, in order to abstract that away because it can talk to Flutter GPU to get converted into code that the GPU actually understands. Right,
to act as a shim. Yep. I'm surprised they didn't have something like that already. I mean, there's SDL and OpenGL, and there's other abstraction layers like that. Surprised didn't have one already.
Yeah, well, OpenGL's pretty old, but the benefit of it is cross-platform entirely. So it makes it. It's not even really a graphics engine. OpenGL is not a graphics engine. It's essentially a maths engine.
It's standard.
Yeah, it's an
API basically.
Yeah, well, it's the way Brett described it is it's a maths engine. It's there to do maths.
Right, and draw your triangles.
Yeah,
calculate your triangles for you.
Because everything is a triangle.
Everything's a triangle. All right. And speaking of lists and maths, I don't know, some sort of segue. We have a list.
We do have a list. It has numbers.
We have a list. It has a number. We haven't done a list for a while. Now, this is a list, the 10 hot new cloud and code security tools in 2024. Even though 2024 is nearly done, what have we got on this list, Ian?
Well, 10 hot new cloud and code security tools, Bakey.
Yes. But tell me what they are. I can't wait.
What's one? Give me one.
All right. Number one, Aqua, an LLM-based app security. So,
yeah, well, this is a no-brainer. I mean, this had to happen, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Aqua Security in May debuted its latest enhancements to code to cloud security offering with the launch of protection for LLM-based applications.
Yeah.
That was a cool little one. I'm not going to read all of the articles here, but I'll give you the quick headline of them. CrowdStrike, Falcon Cloud Security AI SPM.
Our favourite. Our favourite.
CrowdStrike, we love you. No one ever. Well, the airlines certainly don't. In September, CrowdStrike announced major updates to its Falcon Cloud Security offering, including the introduction of AI Security Posture Management. There you go.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
Number 3 is Microsoft Defender for cloud updates.
Yep.
For those of you who are unlucky enough to use Azure, I do apologize. However, during its Build 2024 conference in May, Microsoft announced it had upgraded Defender for cloud to offer enhanced protection of AI apps. Righto, next one.
Get Defender in the cloud now. Yeah,
yep.
Good.
Yeah. Microsoft's in the cloud. They're putting containers at the bottom of the ocean or something. Netscope, Gen AI powered SaaS security. So Netscope just
what doesn't have AI attached to it?
Everything is AI.
If you want investor dollars, you have AI.
AI.
AI acquiring investors. That's
But I can understand why Netscope would. It actually does make it make sense that their inspections are done via AI. Yep.
Yeah. So Netscope disclosed new updates to its CASB, so Cloud Access Security Broker offering that brings greater Gen AI capabilities to protecting SaaS usage. Interesting.
Okay.
Orca Security, Cloud Threat Detection and Response. So Orca Security has announced that it's expanded its capabilities for cloud detection and response, including the introduction of an enhanced user experience featuring an event-driven security dashboard. Which
I'd not heard of this Orca Security. What is it? It's like a threat dashboard or something, is it?
Hang on.
Event security dashboard. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'd not heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one didn't have AI in the title, so it can't be of any use.
Maybe that's why I hadn't heard of it, yeah.
Doesn't have AI in the title. It can't be of any use. Like, seriously. Sounds very 1990s.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
The Palo Alto Cortex XSIAM for cloud. That is a mouthful and a half. Palo Alto, please go and rename that because that is insane. Palo Alto has unveiled a product offering aimed at delivering new cloud security functionality through its, and this is what it stands for, Extended Security Intelligence and Automation Management Security Operations Platform. Say that 10 times quickly.
Doesn't have the 2 letters AI in there.
Well, it does, but they're backwards.
IA.
It's IA.
Intelligence artificial.
You're not going to sell. You won't sell unless you've got AI in it. No,
that's it. Sentinel-1 Singularity Cloud Native Security. So in May, Sentinel-1 announced the launch of its Singularity Cloud Native Security Platform, which the company said combines both agent-based and agentless CNAPP capabilities to protect against cloud threats. Righto.
Yep.
Again, another one that doesn't have AI in it. SNCC.
But I bet you it has the word cloud though.
No, SNCC doesn't. So SNCC App Risk Pro. So building on the debut last year of SNCC's application security posture management offering, App Risk, the developer security platform vendor announced the launch of an App Risk Pro version.
Yeah.
So it gives you some traceback capabilities, a little bit more stuff. Tenable vulnerability. Speak now. Too many words.
There's a lot in this list.
There's a lot in this list. Thankfully, this is the second last page of this list. Tenable's vulnerability intelligence and exposure response. So Tenable announced that it's now offering additional context-driven features for prioritization and response, including in its Tenable cloud security platform, dubbed Vulnerability Intelligence and Exposure Response. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the security vendors love really long names. Must make them feel important to have a name that doesn't fit on the page.
The thing is, of everything on this list, right, except maybe for Snick, how many of these are actually really just like an LLM that's pointed at your log stack to just sit there
and some buoy on the front of it,
pretty much, right?
Done in the afternoon, yeah.
Yep. It's just a different way to graph the same stuff.
Yeah.
And the last one on the list, thankfully, we've got to the final, WizCode. So in September, fast-growing cloud and AI security vendor Wiz unveiled its new offering for tracing security risk back to application code. There you go. It has AI in the title.
Another log parser.
Yeah. Another blog. They all are.
Like they all are.
Let's be honest. They all are.
Regex AI.
Yeah, and Snick does, because Snick does container security as well, vulnerability assessments, because we use it. Just plug Snick in and off it goes. And so if you're using an outdated version of Java that's got some horrendous CVE against it or something like that, Snick will pop up and go, you need to update this.
We'll call it out.
Yeah. So I actually really like Snick's product. I use it both personally and at work. So yeah. There you go. There's the list.
Excellent. And I tell you what, I was really impressed with that article. The publisher, the guy that wrote it, managed to get a photo of every vendor at a show, the stands at their show.
Yep. I was going to say the thing that really impressed me is that he put 10 things on 11 pages.
Do you think maybe it was the same show? He just happened to be there, and he's like,
"It's quite possible."
I'll put you on the site as long as I get to win like a T-shirt.
Yeah. You give me a T-shirt.
I'll put my business card in so I can get a lunch.
Yeah.
Although I'm quite impressed with Wiz's stand. It's got like a 1950s sort of pop stand vibe going on. WizMart.
Cloud visibility spray.
Yes.
It's silly.
It's a bit silly.
Actually, I like that though. I like a stand that's got a little bit of personality to it.
It's a bit creative, yeah. It's not just the plain boring, like, we're a security vendor type look about it.
Just like 3 people in black T-shirts standing around.
Yeah. Like you have a look at Snick's booth there as well, and it's got a whole heap of different colours to it. It's bright. It pops a little bit. You look at Sentinel-1, white, and it's got some blue lights. Palo Alto, white.
There can be a new segment to us. Is like rating stands at trade shows.
Rating stands at shows.
Netscope had a reasonable one too. It's a bit colourful.
I'm launching my stand rating AI startup. So $6 billion valuation.
All right. Well, look, enough of the silliness. Let's get on to the really silliness. Let's get on to the AI Wars. All right. A little bit slow in the AI Wars news this week, I thought.
But, all quiet on the AI front.
All quiet on the AI front.
Unless you're working in security.
No.
Unless you're working in security, and that's it. But we can now get Meta's Llama 3.2 is now available on Google Cloud. Today, we're announcing that Llama 3.2, Meta's new generation of multimodal models, is available in Vertex AI in Model Garden.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Llama 3.2, obviously I think we've mentioned it on the show before it was available in Vertex. It's a generation of vision and lightweight models that are good for edge devices, tailored for use cases that require more private and personalized AI experiences. So it's multimodal. Llama 3.2 has 11 billion and 90 billion vision LLM versions. And it's small. Yeah, obviously there's also a lightweight 1B and 3B lightweight models as well. Nice.
There you go. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'll have to give that one a test. I might switch my Slack bot over to use the Llama model instead of Gemini.
You can do it live.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Let's do that. Live coding at its best.
Actually, I mean, if you're doing it at Google, you probably should do it from Llama to Gemini.
Nah. we show.
Easy it is. I can change my model.
We could do it from Gemini to some other random one that hallucinates a lot, and so
the
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's cool. But moving on, Vertex, what have we got? Vertex AI agents. What's this all about, Ian? You said this is the latest hotness.
Yeah. So I was at a talk at DevFest in Melbourne, and a Gemini GDE gave a talk on Vertex AI agents, and this blows my mind. So it's an agent that you can connect to your own data, and it pulls your data in. And the way it works is you've got the main Gemini model that Google houses, and then the Vertex AI agent builds a different model based on your data. So it can be scraping like your website or your Confluence site or some other data source of yours. And what it does is when you send a query to Gemini, it'll go in and query both of those different models at the same time. They're both separate models, so you can't sort of start polluting Gemini with your private information, your IP. But this thing allows you to create that private model that only you can use. Really, really simple to set up. The walkthroughs on the docs actually show you exactly how to set up the app and how to connect it up to your particular use case, and then how it functions. There you go. Nice quick one. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah. So if you were like an enterprise and you had a big document repository, for instance, or a law firm that had, a back catalogue of cases or whatever, you could build up a model around that and, search it with natural language or have it come up with, answers from that repository with natural language.
Yeah,
it's good.
I see the idea of like law firms and insurers and all that sort of stuff. This would be a fantastic use case for that, because you've got all of that documentation on past cases, for instance, as a law firm, and being able to query Gemini with here's the details of this case, show me other cases that are like this and what their outcome was and how we won it or lost it.
Yeah, that ability to link cases together too. Yep. Imagine. Oh, that's I can see the Netflix documentary now, right? The cold cases that have been solved with AI.
Yeah.
How good is that going to be?
But that also gives the lawyer something when they're in court to go to reference past cases and decisions that were made in past cases to set precedent.
Because previously it would have relied on, really smart people retaining all that information, or, people just slogging it out and just researching.
Yeah.
But if you've got a giant model that has it all in there, all you got to do is put the right prompt in.
That's it. 100%, just the right prompt and away you go. So yeah, I think this is the next big boon for for AI itself.
Yeah, and medical data as well, right? I mean, that's great. What when you can start linking cases and finding the corner cases and all the edge cases, and suddenly you're linking all the symptoms together and finding the commonalities. That's you need a big data set to do that, and having it in an LLM is really the way to go.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay, it's great. We're going to see some good stuff come out of that.
I hope so.
And then finally, short and sharp for the AI Wars this week, an article I was throwing in the show notes. Ads arrive at Google AI overviews. OpenAI raises $6.6 billion in funding, and Meta and Apple reject EU's AI Pact, sort of as the last paragraph. But it's this article is talking about AI overviews appearing now. So when you do a search, you'll get your sponsored ads at the top of your search. There'll be a little overview on that's AI generated. And they're testing this at the moment only in the US with mobile users, but that's not the thing that grabbed my attention about this article. At the end of the article, in the last paragraph, it talks about, and I'm going to have a dig and find out a little bit more about this, the AI Pact that's been set up in the EU. Now, I've not heard about this until I read this article, but the EU is going to be instigating an AI pact by, I don't know if the year's mentioned here, but in the coming years they'll be implementing this. And the idea is around responsible AI usage, right? And it was signed. This pact was generated by the EU's Artificial Intelligence Pact. It's non-binding, but at the moment it's been signed by 115 companies, which is OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. But Meta, Apple, and TikTok said, no thanks. We're not going to sign that. We just want to go ahead and do our own thing.
Well, there was a couple of other big names there too that it mentions as Anthropic and Mistral missing from that pact as well. So
exactly, yeah. And we don't know where Elon Musk is on this either. He's not mentioned.
Oh, that's right, yeah, because Grok's not listed there either.
He'll be a big player, yeah.
So I mean, there's some big names missing from this, which suggests that there's probably quite a bit of pushback on the terms of this pact. But you see the big names that are listed as signatories would suggest that potentially this is the only way that you're going to be able to get your AI models into those countries. Reading between the lines.
Yeah, well, and as we know, the EU's pretty hard-faced about these things as well.
Yep.
Yeah, they're very big on protecting their citizens. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, and they have no qualms with taking the multinationals to task over it. I mean, everything that I was sort of reading here is that legislation. There's some legislation that's in effect now. There is more coming. So it's like you kind of want to be a part of this. Otherwise, the legislation is going to take effect, and you will comply,
and you won't be ready for it, right? Yeah,
or you're not going to be allowed in the country.
Yeah, you don't
with
get this
your
market
models at all. Which, I mean, they're not really going to push Facebook out of the country. They'll take them to task and fine them millions, billions, whatever. I don't know that it's really going to bother Facebook too much or Meta. Apple's already been given short shifts in the EU with their you have to get rid of that Lightning connector and go to USB-C like the rest of the world.
Thank you.
Apple aren't playing the AI game. This is not even in the race. Well, they didn't even step up to the starting blocks.
They've just released Apple Intelligence on their iPhones.
God, give me a break. Give me a break.
So you've released the smallest model known to mankind and put it on an iPhone, and it barely works.
Meanwhile, Google have TPUs baked into their phones.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So we need to follow up on this one, guys, and just find out where this is at, because I think this could have bigger ramifications than than they're expecting. And it's going to affect everyone. Even though it's the EU, it will have knock-on effects globally.
Oh, of course it will.
As we know, because, the old lightning connectors, as you say.
Oh, and you've only got to have a look at data disclosure notifications on websites.
GDPR, absolutely.
GDPR.
Yep.
If someone from the EU accesses your website, you must have this thing, which reminds me I've got to do it for hours. But
yeah, I actually switched mine on the other day. I actually noticed that I had that little checkbox not enabled yet, so that's on now.
And all those cookie pop-ups as well. We can blame them for that.
Yep.
All right. Well, look, I think we've had enough for today. It's just ticked over 9 o'clock in the morning here, and I want to go and get another coffee, I'll tell you what. But you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Go to Apple Podcasts and write us a review. That'll really help the show out. And go to YouTube, start the discussion there, and smash that like button while you're at it. You can contact the show, contact@gcpbytes.com.au, and you can find us at www.gcpbytes.com.au as well. And don't forget that today's sponsors was Hive-Tech Solutions and Mantle Group. Well, that's about it from me. I think everyone said their piece this fortnight,
We're tapped out.
Yep.
All tapped out.
Hey, and your power stayed up the whole recording.
The power stayed up for the whole recording. I've got some builders here working, and the Sparky, I did clue him up beforehand. I say, look, don't touch any power. You don't have to. He's like, no, well, we're good. So I didn't have to enable my business continuity plan, so we're all good.
Podcast continuity.
That's it. All right, guys. Well, we'll catch you in a fortnight. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
I have a plan. Don't worry. I have a plan. Obviously, I'm recording on my laptop, so that'll keep running.
Yep.
I've taken my USB hub, disconnected that, and plugged everything directly into the laptop, so I won't lose the mic and the headphones and the keyboard.
Nice.
And I also have one of these.
The whole 5G.
So,
He's got more of the
just in
Gs.
case.
Yeah, he's got failover. Yep.